Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your 2022 Oakland mayoral candidate. Well, there's been some folks been asking me, well, why don't you get a job? And my reply to them is this: are you a survivor of cancer? And if you are, you would already have the answer as to why I don't work. If you're not a survivor of cancer and haven't been through the treatments, they talk about chemotherapy, they talk about radiation treatment, so all of those, and then also they use a lot of different medications along the way to help you deal with some of the nasty side effects of chemotherapy. And then what they don't tell you about is the long-term crapshoot that always happens. Sure, there's going to be some certain things that can be expected, but then there's the unexpected, because radiation, not only while they target a very confined space, some other things can happen that occur with that radiation treatment. And so in my case, that did occur. And then also another thing that occurred was during the chemo infusion, while it's a traumatic event that occurs, in my case, it occurred twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I would go home and recover for a day or two, and then back for another infusion. And that went on for 30 days. And right after the infusion, I could not drink any cool drink, not even out of a water fountain there out at the hospital. It would have to be warmed up slightly in the microwave so that the nerve endings, the sensitivity from that infusion, if I drank something at room temperature or cooler, it would just be like needles going down my throat, and it was so painful that you couldn't even fathom taking another sip. It was that painful, and one of the things that they didn't tell you about that could happen. And when I told that to my doctor, he said, "Oh yeah, that's on the list." And so there's a lot of things that doctors don't tell you because they don't know if it's going to happen or not. It's a real crapshoot. And then also after that, your life is forever changed, literally. And I say that if you're an individual, a survivor of cancer that went through both radiation and chemotherapy like myself, or if you just had the chemotherapy infusions, and they're so traumatic to the body because not only does it destroy the cancer cells, but it also destroys a lot of good living cells that are necessary for one to maintain a lifestyle. And after all of my treatment, my mobility was greatly reduced because I would get tired very easily. And so the doctor said, well, just keep walking as much as you can, build up stamina, and it'll go away. Well, we had an unknown factor down the street with the emissions, and so that was inhibiting my lungs from actually getting the proper amount of oxygen. And so that was a contributing factor to my recovery, and also some of the issues that I experienced with life after chemo and radiation treatment. And so not only do I get tired very easily, on occasions I do take a nap. And folks say, well, take a nap during the afternoon, you can't do that. Well, out here at night, there's actually you don't get a good night's sleep, period, no matter what, because there's so much activity going on. Plus you have to be on constant guard for people that might try and hurt you. Like a couple of weeks ago, we had a shooting here, and the victim was one of my residents, and the perpetrator was from the other side of Oakland, over on Wood Street. And so things like that happen, and so you don't get a good night's sleep out here. And well, how do you stay clean? And that's the other thing. If I were able to take a job, I would have to clean myself. I'm fortunately been able to have put together a shower, and so that's a community shower for everybody to use, and it's a hot water shower, so it works very efficiently. It's 5 gallons of water, more than enough for folks to take a shower, but there's still room for improvement. But again, I have issues with mobility, which came about through the progression of the chemotherapy treatment. And so what ended up happening within the first year, or shortly after and inside the first year, was that I lost the feeling on the bottoms of my feet. So all of my steps, I have to be very tentative with my steps. It affects my balance. So walking, standing on my feet is not in the cards, not for any kind of long term. For maybe a couple of minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, but for hours on end, not going to happen. Also, I have back issues, and so sitting in a chair, even an ergonomic chair, is still very painful for me. And one of the issues that forced me into early retirement from my position that I had with my company. Now, also, those treatments change you forever. Previously, before cancer, I was a very active person. I enjoyed the outdoors a lot. I did a lot of sport fishing, water skiing, wakeboarding, wake surfing. My family and myself, we were the first family on Lake Sonoma to do wake surfing because of our boat. We had the 26-foot Express Cruiser, which threw a perfect wake for surfing. And so we borrowed a friend's shortboard and decided to give it a try, and that's where it started, or one of the lakes where it started. Nobody knows for sure exactly where it started, but I know that we started doing that. And then on top of that, I would wakeboard, I would water ski, and then in the winter, I was an avid snow skier since I was the age of 17, and took up snowboarding at the age of 50. So I'm not as good on the snowboard as I am with skis. I was an expert skier for snow skiing, but after cancer treatment and chemo, radiation, my life changed forever. I can no longer do any of those sports. I don't know about fishing. I'm sure fishing won't be too much of an issue as long as I'm sitting down predominantly, which I did in the past. But snow skiing is out, water skiing is out. All of those sports that I truly loved and hope to continue to do is no longer a possibility. That's due to the feeling in my feet, equilibrium being affected also from the chemo. Your reaction times on your muscles don't react the same. So there's a lot of differences, and that's why it's very difficult. If you know a survivor of cancer and has been through hell and back, you should ask them, and they'll tell you the truth. Every day it's difficult, and every day is different. And so I've been able to deal with a lot of things, but I also know where my limits lie. And that's the most important thing, that one knows where their limits are. And so with all of my previous background working in government, I have nothing that I can go into the private sector and truly do anything worthwhile for them, because I didn't work for profit, whereas in a private industry that would be working for profit, and that would not be a good fit for me, for a person who has no experience in for-profit business. And then while I did have my business here in Oakland, that provided the cover that I needed for what I actually did. And I worked in counterterrorism. And so you're hearing it for the first time here. I have extensive experience on counterterrorism. And if you follow my pages, I'm starting to talk a little bit about some of the different things that I did. I just recently spoke about an operation that I did here for 3 years through counterterrorism, because the event started overseas, and then when it was overseas, when it hit a certain region, that's where I was brought in, and then I followed it all the way back here, and then we were able to break down everything, break the ring up, and get them shut down. So I know a lot about security and investigations and working in cooperation with the Department of Justice, DOJ. So I'm highly qualified on that level. Most of my experience is going to be at the administrative level. And so a mayor fits that position very well. I don't like doing legislation, which is where city council members tend to be. That's what their work is, legislating. And I was encouraged by several people to run for my district as a council person, and I just said, I've already sat on enough of these councils as a board member, and I don't like legislating. The process is long and tedious, and a lot of times not very fruitful. And it definitely doesn't fit with the work that I've done in the past at restoring communities. So the only thing I'm qualified for right now is the position that I've applied for, which is City of Oakland Mayor. And so I hope that you can take that in consideration, that I am highly, highly qualified. I've worked with multi-billion-dollar budgets. I've overseen huge staffs, and I bring to Oakland my family. My family helped build Oakland. I stayed around Oakland, and I had opportunities to move away, and I didn't. I love Oakland, and I know you do too. I want to restore the pride that Oakland once had, and not be known for what it presently is known for, being a murder capital. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.